Uspap page 276. Appraisal, development, and scope of work issues continued. To the client's defined parameters. In this example, the appraiser must be careful not to communicate any opinions or conclusions regarding the data provided. For related guidance on this topic, see Advisory Opinion 19. Unacceptable assignment conditions in real property appraisal assignments. Number 207. Can appraisers perform comp check assignments? Question. I'm a residential appraiser and have been asked to perform a comp check or pre-comp assignment where a client wants to get an idea of the value of a home prior to proceeding with a mortgage financing transaction. Does Uspap allow me to perform this type of assignment? Response, yes. These types of assignments are allowed under Uspap. To understand the Uspap requirements, it is important to identify exactly what the appraiser is being asked to do. If the appraiser is asked to provide comps, that would typically mean the appraiser would be exercising his or her own judgment to determine which sales are most comparable to the subject property. The appraiser may choose to include only those sales that he or she deems are most similar to the subject in size, location, quality, or other characteristics, which could mean that certain sales may be omitted. In this case, the resulting data would have been filtered by the appraiser's judgment, which would have the net effect of providing a range of value to the client. This range of value is defined as an appraisal under Uspap. Therefore, the appraiser would be obligated to comply with standards 1 and 2. But comp check assignments should be contrasted to requests for an appraiser to simply provide data. For example, an appraiser asked by a client to provide sales data of all homes located within a 1 mile radius of a specific address could comply with the client's request without complying with standards 1 and 2. Because the appraiser would just be providing sales data pursuant to the client's defined parameters, in this example, the appraiser must be careful not to communicate any opinions or conclusions regarding the data provided. For additional related guidance on this topic, please refer to Advisory Opinion 19, Unacceptable Assignment Conditions in Real Property Appraisal Assignments. Number 208, sudden market changes related to catastrophic events. Question, I live and work just outside an area that was devastated by a catastrophic weather event. My market area experienced sudden changes in supply and demand, and real estate sales prices climbed rapidly for a period of time following the disaster. Does Uspap provide advice to real estate appraisers on how to handle sudden market changes brought about by such catastrophic events? Response, although Uspap does not directly address the appraisal issues associated with catastrophic events, the following passages may be especially important in appraisals involving properties in markets that are changing rapidly for any reason. Standards Rule 1-2E requires an appraiser to identify economic attributes relevant to the subject property. Standards Rule 1-3A specifically requires analysis of supply and demand. For appraisal report, Standards Rule 2-2A Roman numeral 3 requires disclosure of economic property characteristics relevant to the assignment. Market conditions, including sudden market changes related to catastrophic events, are economic property characteristics, and as such, should be identified in the development of an appraisal and disclosed in the appraisal report. Standards Rules 2-2A Roman numeral 5 addresses the type and definition of value used in an assignment. The comments to this standards rule states in part, page 277, stating the definition of value also requires any comments needed to clearly indicate to intended users how the definition is being applied. In cases of sudden market change, it would be necessary to specifically disclose such things as how the appraisal has addressed the motivation of buyers and sellers, supply and demand, the conditions of the sale, for instance, exposure in a competitive market, and other important related influences on the property. As noted in Standard 2, the content of all real property appraisal reports must be consistent with the intended use of the appraisal. In the case of a rapidly changing market, the report must have enough information to allow intended users to understand the market conditions and to use that information in their decision making. Number 209, encumbrances on personal property. Question: what are some examples of an encumbrance that could have an effect on the value of personal property? Response: any encumbrance exists when the owner of a property is prohibited from exercising one of the traditional rights of ownership. For instance, when one of the sticks in the bundle of rights is removed. Examples include constraints on the exhibition of a work of art, a prohibition or limit on the breeding of an animal, a prohibition on the use of a machine in a particular location, or the prohibition or limit on the sale of the item produced by a particular machine. Each of these examples shows an encumbrance that prohibits a particular action, and in each case, the prohibition may have an effect on value. Number 210, liens on personal property. Question: I am appraising an asset that is encumbered by a lien. Does the term encumbrances in Standards Rule 7-4D mean that when providing an opinion of the value of an asset that is being used as collateral, an appraiser would conclude a value based on the portion of the asset that is not encumbered by the lien? For instance, taking into consideration the remaining balance outstanding on a loan secured by the asset. Also, must it be stated in the report which particular assets being appraised is encumbered by this lien? Response: Standards Rule 7-4 states in part, in developing a personal property appraisal, an appraiser must collect, verify, and analyze all information necessary for credible assignment results. Standards Rule 7-4D further states, when developing an opinion of value of a lease, leased, or encumbered property, an appraiser must analyze the effect on value, if any, that's highlighted, of the terms and conditions of the lease or encumbrances, bold added for emphasis. The mere existence of a lien or other encumbrances does not necessarily affect value. even though the owner's equity in the property may be greatly impacted. The Uspap requirement is to analyze the effect on value. If there is no effect on value, then no further analysis is required. End of page.